I'd like to thank both ambassadors for speaking with us. We really appreciate taking their time and sharing their experience and knowledge with us. After they get done speaking, we'll be going through a rotation of the participants. We'll be starting here first at Fairleigh Dickinson and Madison. And then the second site asking questions would be Roger Williams. The third site will be Western Michigan. The fourth site will go to Lock Haven. And then hopefully by that time, TNEC will be able to engage with the questions. They'll be the fifth site, and then if we have any more time, we'll start the rotation over again. So I'd like to turn the discussion over to Ambassador Kamal. Thank you, Ambassador Kamal.
Thank you very much. We're delighted to be with you and to have the sheer distinction of having Ambassador Valenzuela with us. Ambassador Valenzuela comes from Spain, but he is here in his capacity as the representative of the European Union at the United Nations. And this is truly a very distinguished ambassador, distinguished most of all because of his sense of humor and the great affection that he has created for himself among all his colleagues at the United Nations. With his permission and with yours, I will lead straight into the subject myself first. We're talking of the European Union. It's important to know how the European Union started its life. It started in around the mid-50s or the late 50s, because at that time the French were very keen to find some way of preventing a return of German militarism. France and Germany had been in conflict for years, and France particularly was very keen to make sure that Germany would not be coming forward again towards France. And so the French analysis was that German militarism was really based on two factors, and those two factors were coal and steel. That German coal and steel in the Ruhr Basin is what German might was based on. And if somehow one could get hold of the coal and steel and take it away from German control, then Germany would be constrained. And so the first proposal that was made was to suggest that all the coal and steel of all the key core countries of Europe, instead of being nationally controlled, should be controlled by a common board. The idea was not to put French coal and steel in common control because the French didn't have much. The idea was how to get hold of German coal and steel. And Germany agreed. Germany agreed because of this great guilt which Germany had on its head for the crimes committed in World War II under Nazi Germany and under Hitler. And so Germany agreed to give up control of its coal and steel and place it in a common European basket. That common concept of what was called the European Coal and Steel Community then expanded very easily into the original European Common Market, which came in Rome as a treaty in 1959, and which was really the result of great statesmanship being shown by General de Gaulle in France and Chancellor Konrad Adenauer in Germany. And so the original Europe was three big countries, France, Germany, Italy, and three small countries, Belgium, Netherlands, and Luxembourg. The three bigs and the three smalls. And this was the European community. Based on the European community were two or three fundamental ideas. The first was that Germany was paying for its guilt, but it also had to pay for the future. And so an extraordinary system of common agricultural policy was established, under which the Germans would continue to finance and the French would continue to benefit. The others also benefited, but the basic deal was Germany pays. And Germany was willing to pay. From then on, you go into common transport policy, free movement of labor, a lot of free movement of goods, harmonization of rules. All these are fallouts from that initial concept of a European economic community. And then the European economic community, as you know, started getting bigger ideas, and it expanded into something called the European Union, and then it expanded into something called European space. And so here we have a core which is starting to expand. And that expansion is physical. An original set of 6 countries goes into 9 countries. And then the 9 countries become 10. 10 becomes 12. 10 becomes 15. And 15 last year becomes 25. The question is, if you expand, the chances are that you will dilute. Because if you are a small club, obviously everybody agrees. But if you get more and more members around the table, the concept of the lowest common denominator comes into play. And so there is a dilution. And it is for us to find out today, what is the value of that dilution? Has the European Union got stronger or has it grown weaker? Now please remember that one of the key expansions of Europe is into Eastern Europe. The European Union has expanded eastwards. This eastern expansion is an old traditional policy of Germany, which calls it Drang nach Osten, or the pull of the East, because Germany has always believed that Eastern Europe is a part of its fundamental zone of influence. And so one would imagine that Germany is now beginning to get the best out of the European Union because it is expanding its zone of influence into Eastern Europe. Now, it's difficult to say that because free movement of labor means that everybody should benefit from the expansion into Eastern Europe. Spain and Portugal. European defense is not European. It is ensured by NATO. And so, where is common European Union and where is common European defense? And without that, how can we judge whether it is a union or a federation or perhaps even a confederation? I don't know. Ambassador Valenzuela, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much. On top of the floor, I would need a crystal ball because it's not easy to respond to these questions. In fact, many of them simply probably do not have an answer, and do not have an answer because this is a process in which every day we try to go a step further. Sometimes we go a step backwards, but in any case, we are building the process every day. And when you look either at medium term or long term, you have to guess a little bit which is the direction that most likely is going to be taken. I think that the basic principles that put together this joint venture in Europe continue to be perfectly valid, and is still the best way to keep European countries in a peaceful, stable, and development path. On the other hand, it is true that we have enlarged very rapidly, particularly in the last few years. In the last 10 years, we've gone from practically from 12 to 25. Practically 27 because Romania and Bulgaria are practically already members. They have signed the adhesion treaties. They are not yet members, but they sit as observers in all the meetings, etc. So we have this process of enlargement. At the same time, we have been deepening, and this is the formal objective, is to enlarge and deepen at the same time. Both things together are not easy, and you're right when you express some doubts on whether expansion might dilute